Well, welcome to Creative Journeys, Conversations with Artists. This month, I'm interviewing Joseph Mendla, who is a sculptor and a teacher and my husband, and lots of other things too. But so anyway, Joe has a very varied career in art and some very interesting stories about his path, and I would love for all of you to hear about them. So Joe, I'll just let you get started and talk about what led you into art and how you ended up being a sculptor.
Well, it was an accident. I was an undirected, nerdy type kid in high school, didn't know what I was going to do, and ended up going to art school to study industrial design. I only went to art school because that's where they taught industrial design. Not to be an artist. However, when I got to art school, it changed my life in a whole lot of ways. But the point is that partway through my design course, I was taught to weld. And even though I'd made a couple pieces of sculpture in the past, once I was able to use the material steel, I could make skinny things that were like drawings in space. And that was so exciting to me that I ended up changing course. I got my design degree, but at the end I had a portfolio that said Joseph Mendla, sculptor, and was headed in a different direction. I was planning to support myself by teaching at probably in middle school or secondary level, and got a job to do that out of art school. But then I had a wonderful opportunity, and I was given a Master of Fine Arts degree from the University of Pennsylvania. And so that was a great opportunity. It opened the doors to college level teaching. And so that's the path I took, because I needed to support myself and I wanted to continue making sculpture. And so my day job was the wonderful, privileged job of being a teacher. I taught at Marywood College in Pennsylvania. It's now Marywood University. I moved to Louisville, Kentucky, Louisville School of Art. I was offered a job to run the sculpture department of Layton School of Art and Design in Milwaukee. The school closed. A few of us, it was a great school. A few of us thought that was a terrible loss. There should be an independent art school in the state of Wisconsin, and we talked about making one up. Well, some students took us at our word, and with their support, we created a new school, which was Milwaukee School of the Arts, and now it's MIAD. And that's how that got started. It was an unbelievable experience of a group of people working together with some shared goals, as different as we were, to build something. And that school was built with students and faculty. We knew our roles as students and faculty, but we worked together as partners and built the school. That was such a powerful experience for me that it gave me the courage to go into business myself. So after I spent 7 years at MIAD, the first 7 years, and it was a wonderful adventure. And then I left MIAD to open an art foundry, Hart Bronze Incorporated in Milwaukee. I couldn't afford to go into business and to buy the equipment. So I designed and built my own equipment, which was state of the art and kind of radical in some ways, but it worked great. So I had an adventure. I love to make things up. I've always loved to make things up. Anyway, that got me to all along sculpture is somewhere in the background. And when I can, I'm making steel sculpture and sometimes using other materials. When I had a foundry at my disposal, I could make figurative bronzes. And so I started doing some commission work in figurative bronzes. So did some bas-relief portraits and some small animals for the Zoological Society, and culminating in a larger sculpture, a war memorial for the Korean War with larger than life figures. Anyway, my first love was still steel and drawing in space, but other things had intervened. So that brought me through the foundry. Following the jobs got me to this part of the country. I felt very much at home here, and never, once I'd moved here to Wisconsin, I never really considered doing anything else, moving anywhere else, because I felt at home, and I was just content to do that. The steel work continued. I took a little side trip into working with found objects, because metal stuff fascinates me. You know, machine parts and odd bits, and I'd start putting them together and try to reinvent them and get them to be something else. I finally came to a point where I had an opportunity to show some things at a show in Cedarburg at the Cultural Center, and but they were little things, and I didn't make little things, and had a bright idea and made some the prototypes of my centering sculptures that I've been building all along.
So can you talk a little bit about what is a centering sculpture?
Well,
what does that mean?
I'm glad you said that, because I guess those words don't really mean anything. I have to back up a little bit and say that I've been a long time meditator. And I've been kind of a student of consciousness, or however to say it, since I was a twerp. And I was aware of some brush paintings with ink on rice paper that are made as an exercise in becoming one-pointed, becoming centered, becoming calm. And so that was somewhere in the back of my mind. And I had an experience that worked as a kind of a bridge, and I realized that I could make things in steel by bending arcs of steel rod, making kind of circular things that in a way resembled these painted or drawn circles whose intent was for the maker and then the viewer to become centered. Mm-hmm. And so I made my version with some junked steel that I had from another sculpture I cut up. And I got excited about that. And I love the way they worked. They worked for me. I hoped that they would work for other people. And because I like to use titles to point at my intention, give the viewer a hint about where my head was, not that it shouldn't mean anything to them. And I called these Zen brushwork.
Okay, because they were basically along the idea of that Enso symbol of the Zen brushwork symbol.
Yeah, exactly.
And the circular quality of these creates what you're calling a centering sculpture, where it helps you to look through the center, the open center of the sculpture.
That's right.
To center and calm yourself.
That's exactly right.
And so you've been working on this series for about 5 years, right. And you've done a lot of variations on a theme, and
no two are alike. Yeah, right.
And so as a result, they sell pretty well, but more important than the fact that they're selling is that you're getting them out there and people are able to experience this.
Yeah.
So I've been expounding here for a while. So
no, well, our way in our society to distribute things or get things around is through buying and selling. And so the fact that obviously I eat food and live in a house and stuff like that, and so I have these vices that require money. But so I am interested in selling, and I don't want to have a huge collection of Joe Mendla sculpture, which I do anyway, but And so I really want to get them out there, but my wanting to get them out there is so that they'll be useful and they'll be doing their job in the world. And based on that intent that I have, the fact that these things, when you look at them, can be helpful in allowing a person to become calm and centered.
Now let's jump back just a little bit and talk about your found object work, because you've done a lot of work with that and created some very, very wonderful sculptures in that way.
Oh, thanks. I love stuff. I love metal objects. I enjoy them a lot. Things like tool or machine parts, for instance, they're really frozen thought or frozen rationality, and that is probably why they appeal to me. You know, they make a certain kind of sense. They're based on geometry, and in my heart, I'm really an engineer, and so the parts themselves, as fragments of machines or whatever they were, are interesting to look at. I find them interesting. I like to play with them. But then I like to start putting them together in ways which changes their entire presence and meaning. And in fact, the whole point of found object sculpture is to transform the use of, or the original or former use of, an identity of those bits and pieces. They have so much, they track a lot of stuff in their shoes in a way, because they have such a strong identity as whatever they were, that it's sometimes a real challenge to get to transcend that, so that a person doesn't come in and say, oh yeah, there's a lawnmower blade and 3 gears and and doing a kind of inventory, but rather the viewer can come in and respond to the whole sculptural object as a new creation. So that's a kind of challenge that I've really enjoyed.
Well, I'm going to tell a funny little story that I love remembering this. There was one time when I was gone somewhere, and you had made a trip to the salvage yard,
Yep.
and which is where most of these found object metal pieces are found, and I came home, and our whole driveway was full of these. Some of them were very large, like really tall, and pieces of metal, rusty old metal, and you're walking around between them, and I could just tell you're just having the time of your life, and I just thought, this is so wonderful, because you were so happy. And so I decided that you were Dances with Steel at that point. So
you gave me a name.
Yes. You became Dances with Steel.
Okay.
So that's just my cute little story.
Okay. I had a blast. I had 5 pieces going. I got home, unloaded the van, spread things out, started grabbing things, putting them together, saying, oh, what about this? What about that? These go together. And I could do that. And because I had hundreds of pieces. And yeah. And I ended up then putting them together, and I would modify do all the playing around with them. I still have some of those pieces, by the way. And it's something that I love to do. I love the challenge, but I love the richness. I love the fact that these parts, if I can put them together in the right way, can become so evocative and suggestive of other kinds of ideas that I would never maybe think of myself. I'd never make a thing like that. But because I found something that had some of that quality, that I have to deal with that and negotiate with it. That's a blast. I love it.
It's a very intuitive way of working. So that's really nice. Yeah. And it, it leads into then, I'm going to jump back ahead to the Zen brushwork. There are times when you use some of these found object pieces.
Yeah, I've done
the Zen brushworks too.
I've done some of that.
I'm sorry. No, you go ahead. This is.
I wasn't going anywhere with that. I tend to ramble on.
Well, what I was going to say is it just talks about sort of the whole artist journey of you work in one way for a while, and then you try something new, and then you work in that way for a while, and then you go back and you incorporate the old, and so there's a whole flow in an artist's life and career, if you stay open to allowing that to happen. And so I've seen it in your way of working in the years that we've been together.
Yeah. Well, can't help but be yourself, that mysterious quantity that is uncovered through a whole life.
Yeah. Well, okay, I'm going to jump into the very present moment.
Good.
And I'm going to talk about a project that Joe and I are working on together. Joe has been a lifelong meditator, and I'll let you talk in a minute about it. And he has written a series of guided meditations based on some prompts that I gave him about struggles that my students often have in their creative process. And then I'm taking what he's written and creating videos out of them. And so they're going to be posted on the Creative Journey site, and it is exclusive to Creative Journeys. They won't be available anywhere else. And they're all about, around between 15 and 20 minutes. And they're just very, very lovely and accessible kinds of things. So why don't you talk some more about them?
Well, they're guided meditations in the sense that they have a target, or in fact, the reason that the series is called Intention, each has an intention that's pretty specific. Now, meditation itself, people think it's a big thing. It's really very simple, very approachable, very ordinary. Anybody can do it. You can't fail at it. And so these guided meditations are put together, or designed, created with that idea in mind, that anybody can do it. That it takes, and the idea is to take away some of the mystique, but at the same time, by the few comments I use as an introduction, I hope to plant suggestions so that people are encouraged to deal with some of the issues that Mary has identified in her teaching. She's found there's things that hang people up, that are difficult for them. And so this is really an experiment on our part. We're creating these tools that we hope, we want to test fly them, we hope that they will be useful to people who are dealing with some of these issues. And each meditation specifically is pointed at an issue. So if a person resonates with that, they might say, hey, I'll listen to that one. And so pretty soon we're going to start finding out if they work.
And they don't have to be used just by people who are struggling with issues.
No.
Meditation is just wonderful as an opening into yourself and relaxation. And it's just a very healing thing to do. So they're, as Joe was saying, they're very accessible, taking the mystique of meditation away from the process, rather than a Sanskrit mantra or something like that. He's using what he's calling anchoring phrases that you can just sort of repeat to yourself. And I just, in working on the videos, I've been finding that I just get totally into a meditative place myself.
Good.
It's wonderful.
Good.
Yeah. So
there's no mystery. Everyone can do it. All I'm doing is cracking a door open, and if people want to, they can walk through. There is as many ways to meditate as there are people. And there are a lot of, well-known approaches that seem kind of forbidding in a way, like, wow, can I do that? And I'm trying to bypass all of that. And I'm purposely leaving out all the esoteric stuff and getting right to the center of it.
Mhm.
and the easy part, the stuff that all of us can share. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, I'm going to have them launched on Creative Journeys this Sunday, the first one. And I will launch one probably more or less every week until we finish the whole series. And I think I mentioned already that they're exclusive to Creative Journeys, and so
Mhm.
they're just for you members. And I can't wait to hear what you think of them.
Please talk back.
Mhm,
I'd love to hear that.
mhm.
And if you want to talk about sculpture, ask questions or whatever, I like that too.
Mhm.
But this is our new venture. It's been fun. I get to do the easy part. I mean, I write a script and I read the script, make a little recording. Then I have all the fun, and then Mary produces this beautiful thing. So I can't lose.
Well, neither can I. I mean, it really is an equal collaboration. You're more gifted in the verbal ways and than I am, and so I wouldn't be able to do it without your
Oh, great.
words. So that's wonderful.
That's a good partnership.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're kind of wrapped up. Is
Yeah,
there
let's tie
anything
a
else you
bow on
wanted
it.
to talk about?
Oh, not really.
Okay.
Not really. I'd really like to open the door for people to talk back, but that's up to you.
Mhm.
And I've had a chance to give you a short outline version of my story, my favorite subject, me. If you want to hear more, great, get in touch. But
Yeah.
in the meantime, at least you have some sense of what my path has been. And it's a privilege. It's a wonderful blessing to be an artist. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing, Joe, with us. This is really nice. And just after this, I'll attach it all together as one video. Joe recorded a brief walkthrough of the studio space, which is interesting.
Whoops.
Yeah, and so you'll be able to see some of the grit and grime that he works around, and he just loves it. So that's wonderful. So once again, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. And then stick around for the live Q&A session after. So we'll both be sitting there, talking heads looking at you for that too. So okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello. Welcome to my studio. It's my studio, playhouse, playroom, workshop, sanctuary, music hall, because I listen to music, and that's a big part of what I do here. You're looking at my anvil, which I use for a variety of things. Hard to describe all the things I do with it. And my rolling mill, which I use to bend the arcs that are part of the Zen brushwork centering sculptures that I make. An old friend. And the saw that I use for cutting the steel rods that I bend into the arcs for making those sculptures. And my welding table. I've got a variety of sizes of the forms that I've made to help me assemble the sculptures. And of course, some work in progress, so bits and pieces of bent arcs. And a little more workspace here with a vise. I could say one of my many vices. And some necessary tools of the trade, some grinders necessary to the process, including some air grinders. And of course, since I use air grinders, the compressor, which gives me the air, and the tablet hiding in the corner that is the source of the music that is such a big part of my space. So this place, oh yes, I could call this the command center, where I testify sculptures, think thoughts, write things, consider things, basically invent the world. And then, of course, a lot of my history is here because the place is sort of a warehouse of old friends, of old sculpture, which, hey, is still important and still alive. Anyway, I'm glad you could visit my space. Oh yeah, one last thing. The world, right outside my door. Not much to look at, but a wonderful place to be.